It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. What's up guys, it's Low Roll Legend. I've been playing a lot of the Breath of the Wild lately, and with all of the weapons you can get in the game, it got me thinking, what are the best swords in the game? There are a ton to choose from in Breath of the Wild, but they aren't as iconic as other games. So I decided to make a list of the top 5 swords in the entire Zelda series. This will factor in how useful, best looking aesthetically, how iconic, and many other criteria. The sword is a mainstay in Link's arsenal. Starting with the first game in 1986, Link has always used a sword as his main weapon, and there have been a ton of good swords throughout the series. So let's take a look at the top 5. Number 5. The Sword of the Six Sages. Technically, you can't use this sword in the first game it appears in. It's more of a cameo. Before the events of Twilight Princess, the Six Sages forged the Sword of the Six Sages to execute Ganondorf. The Six Sages gathered in the Mirror Chamber with Ganondorf in chains as one of the sages pierced the sword into Ganondorf's chest. However, the Triforce of Power kept him alive. Ganondorf pulled the sword from his body and broke free from the chains to kill the Sage of Water. Even though Ganondorf is sent to the Twilight Realm, he manages to keep the sword and use it against Link in the final battle. Link never actually wields the Sword of the Six Sages in Twilight Princess though. But the Sword of the Six Sages appears in Breath of the Wild as an amiibo item from the Ganondorf amiibo. Link can equip the sword and use it as a weapon. It's a two-handed weapon, meaning you have to stash your shield to use it. It's a rather strong weapon, but the reason the Sword of the Six Sages on this list is for the awesome story of it in Twilight Princess. Number 4. The Biggeron Sword. First appearing in Ocarina of Time, the Biggeron Sword has a higher attack power than any other sword in the game. The sword requires 2 hands to wield, unlike the base sword, but is much stronger than any other sword. You will find Biggeron at the top of Death Mountain, who crafts the sword for you over the course of 3 days. The sword also appears in the Oracle games. It's the strongest sword in both games and has a longer reach, but you cannot use your shield with it. Overall, it's a solid sword that looks awesome when Link is wielding it. Number 3. The Four Sword. The Four Sword is one of the most unique swords on this list. Most swords in Zelda act as a regular sword, some with magical abilities like projectiles and whatnot. However, the Four Sword splits Link into 4 separate but equal parts. It completely changes the way you use it. It looks like a normal sword, but the gold hilt makes it look great. As revealed in the Minish Cap, the Four Sword began as a creation of the Picori and was known as the Picori Blade. In the Four Swords game, the Four Sword appears as a sacred blade enshrined to the Four Sword Sanctuary that seals away Vati. The only gripe is that you can't use this sword in any form in Breath of the Wild. It would have been cool to have this sword make 3 copies of Link that all protect each other. I hope the sword comes back in a game very soon. Number 2. The Fierce Deity's Sword. The Fierce Deity's Sword debuted in Majora's Mask. You can only use it when you are wearing the Fierce Deity's Mask, a mask that you can only receive if you collect every mask in the game. It's a 2-handed longsword that has a long range and is able to fire a magical blue blast, similar to sword beams, when targeting an enemy. The double helix design is one of the most unique swords in all of Zelda. The multiple color pattern matches perfectly with the Fierce Deity design. In Breath of the Wild, you can get the sword as an amiibo drop. The description says, "A peculiar greatsword allegedly used from a hero from a world in which the moon threatened to fall. It slashes wildly in battle as if possessed by a fierce deity." If this list was strictly based on design, this sword would be number 1. Number 1. The Master Sword. No surprise here, right? The Blade of Evil's Bane, the sword that seals the darkness. The Master Sword is one of the most iconic weapons in all of gaming. Sure, there are swords that are stronger in some games, but the Master Sword is the only one that can defeat Ganondorf. Link doesn't feel complete without the sword at his side. It's aesthetically one of the best looking swords in all of Zelda as well. The blue hilt and the glowing blue blade is captivating and sets this sword apart from the others. We have seen several versions of the Master Sword throughout the Zelda games. You can receive the Master Sword level 3 in A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds by transforming the Master Sword. The blade turns gold and becomes much stronger. The true Master Sword in Skyward Sword is the awakened version of the Master Sword. It received its full power after being blessed by Hylia, making the Blade of Evil's Bane and giving it the power to defeat Demise. In Breath of the Wild, you can level up the Master Sword by completing the Trial of the Sword. If you finish all 3 trials, the sword will stay at max strength and glow light blue when you use it. It's nice to have a sword that you can level up. This isn't a common thing in Zelda, which is one of the many reasons why the Master Sword is number 1. Overall, this sword tops the list simply because it's possibly the most iconic sword in all of gaming. So that does it for the top 5 swords in the Legend of Zelda series. Let me know what your favorite sword is though. I could understand if your list varies from mine. Also, let me know if you want more top 5 videos like this on the channel. They're super fun to make. Thanks for watching guys. Keep the legend going.